Hey YouTube, it's just Brandy, and let's talk Being Mary Jane, the series finale. So last night was the 2-hour Mary Jane series finale, and they tied it up in a perfect little, pretty little, she gets everything she wanted type of unrealistic bow. When Mary Jane first started, it was such a provocative show. It was a woman. She was seeing a married man, and she was the mistress. She was kind of sexually free. She was a successful in her career, and kind of just living her life her own way. She was making money. She was in the upper echelon of, she had the car, she had the house, and she had these men, and she kind of was out there. She was looking for love, but it was kind of on her terms, and she was just like living her best life. So we saw Mary Jane. She was out here being a host. She had her, she had the white man, she had the married man, she had the comedian, she had, it was like all these different people, all these different situations. And then, of course, the original writer left, and producer Mara Brock Akil, she kind of stepped away and went to go do like things on OWN and everything like that, and she wasn't really involved with Being Mary Jane. And was it Wiley? Somebody black, a black guy came and he took over, and we saw the show change. Mary Jane went from Atlanta to New York, away from her family, which was a big part of the show, and it was weird going back and forth when she was not there. And she started this whole Today Show kind of vibe, thing. And so she is with the producer, Michael Ealy, with his fine self. And okay, so they have that love-hate relationship. It creates like sexual tension, and they end up being together. So he's already rich because he got like $14 million or something when his friend died. So he had all that money, and so they're together. They have this perfect relationship. He is like the perfect successful person. They kind of challenge each other, they push each other. He helped her in her career, but she has to come to a decision of what producer is going to stay, what producer is going to go. Her best friend Kara, who she came from Atlanta with, or her man, and she chooses Kara. So it causes a wedge in the relationship. But so Michael Ealy character breaks up with her because she did not choose him. So that's where we leave off and have this big hiatus. So when we come, okay, so at the end of the episode, Mary Jane is kind of feeling like, I'm gonna be alone forever. Love never works out for me, and I'm never gonna find my happy. So I want to be a mother. She had previously frozen some embryos with some sperm, donor sperm that she chose. And so she just decides, okay, I have these embryos, I'm just gonna go ahead and have them implanted, and just I can't wait anymore. If I want to do this, I'm just gonna have to be fine with doing it on my own. So she has these embryos implanted. Well, who then shows up but Michael Ealy? And he's like, you know what, basically I was in my feelings, but I understand why you chose Kara. I respect it. That's your friend. You came with her, you've been working with her, so I can respect the loyalty. Like the fact that you were loyal to your friend, I can respect that. So he's like, basically, you know, I want to, you know, it's cool. Like I was just having a moment, but you know, we can get back to what we was doing. So she's all happy, like, okay, but because she just had this embryo implanted, she can't have sex because, you know, it's like you just spent all this money and implanted this. If you have an orgasm, it can make the embryo not attach or whatever. So she has not told him that she's done this, and she doesn't know if it's going to be successful. A lot of people do in vitro, and it doesn't work the first, you know, it may not work the first time, second time, whatever. They may have to do it multiple times. So she's like, I don't want to tell him because it may not be successful. And if it's not successful, then why even, you know, why cause the issue if it's a non-factor? So she's doing all this stuff where, you know, they can't have sex. She's been giving them blowjobs because they can't have sex. And then she's like coming to work telling Kara like her jaw is like locked up because she's been giving so many blowjobs. So she like used the back door. So she comes home with some lube so he can fuck her in the ass. Like, that was a bit much. But anyway, to each his own. So finally she gets to the point, I think it's like after 7 to 10 days or whatever, she can take a pregnancy test to find out if she's pregnant. She takes the pregnancy test at home while he's there, and it says that she's pregnant. So he walks in and sees the pregnancy test, and he's like, oh my God, we're pregnant. Because he's thinking, you know, we've been together all this time, and so that means that we are pregnant. So then at that point, she has to tell him what she did. So she's honest. I mean, she could have actually lied. A lot of women, quite honestly, a lot of women would have lied and said, yes, this is your baby. You know, they would have lied. And but she is honest about the situation. She tells him, you know, you left and I made a rash decision. And he was honest with her, and I commend his honesty, because what he didn't do was stay around and get to the point where like the baby came and then he decided he couldn't do it. He said, you know what, you didn't give me an option in this situation. You just basically made all the decisions for me and kind of put me in a situation where I didn't have a choice. We didn't get to have a discussion to decide if this is what we wanted to do or whatever. And I don't think that I can just raise, you know, somebody else's child, like when I didn't get to decide that whole process. That's honest. And so he basically leaves. But, you know, at least he left at the beginning. You know, she just literally found out that she was pregnant. So she's, you know, so it's like, so he leaves, and, you know, she's not like super hurt or super, you know, whatever. She just kind of, you know, whatever. So we jump forward in time. They do a time jump, and they jump forward to where she is approximately 7 months pregnant, and she's going to like a Lamaze class, and she's there by herself. She doesn't have, you know, Kara's not there. She doesn't have, it's like Mary Jane don't have no friends. So she's at Lamaze, you know, doing all this stuff, and they're, you know, basically showing how she's a single mother and unsupported. So she runs into Morris Chestnut, which is an old boyfriend of hers from college that she has not seen in years, and they end up, you know, having a conversation, and, you know, there's a comfortability factor because he is a prior boyfriend. They, you know, share intimate moments. So, you know, she tells him, you know, she has no reason to lie to him. She's not trying to get with him. This is just an old friend, you know. And so she's honest with him. She tells him all about the Justin situation, everything that happened, you know, the whole thing with Justin and how she loved him, and he's there to, you know, for a listening ear. Then, you know, he tells her, okay, you know, I'm divorced, you know, rah. But then he basically also lets her know that, Pauletta, you were the one who got away. I loved you, but I was too nerdy for you. You wanted a different plan, and I didn't fit in that plan that you had. I wasn't the man, because he said, you know, he was real nerdy or whatever when he was in college, and he wasn't the man that he is today. So you know, so he kind of was always, he still holds her in his heart. I don't feel like she's like, you know, like that. I remember, you know, there were other people that she was hung up on. He wasn't one of them. So, you know, he's a super nice guy. And the next time that she has like her little Lamaze class, he kind of pops up. And she's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing here? He's like, you shouldn't have to do this alone. Like, I want to be here to support you, you know, because he basically knows that she's by herself. He said he was adopted. So, you know, for him, taking care of somebody else's child, he doesn't look at it in the same way, because somebody else took care of him and he was somebody else's child. So he doesn't have that hang up. So he kind of, you know, he goes to Lamaze with her, and then they end up being intimate and kind of being in, you know, getting in this pseudo relationship. They're in a relationship, but they are not, they haven't had a discussion about being in a relationship. So he's been around, he's there. And she has to go home to Atlanta to see her family. So she asks him, do you want to go? So he goes home with her to see the family, and it goes well. The family, you know, really embraces him. They know his family and everything, because, like, you know, it's an old boyfriend from back in the day. So there's also comfortability with the family. So the family, you know, takes to him, and they're just happy that, you know, she kind of is not alone, you know, going through this process. So she goes back, they go back to New York, and she's on air. She's 7 months pregnant at this time, and she ends up going into labor. So they rush her to the hospital, and she ends up having to have this baby, like emergency type of situation. And Michael Ealy shows up to the hospital. So, I mean, he's like distraught, like, oh my God, you know, is she okay? He sees Kara, he's like, is she okay? And she's like, yeah, you know, she should be fine. He's like, have you been watching her this whole time? Like, basically watching the show. And he's like, no, it was all over social media. She like, you lying, because you don't even be on social media or whatever. So you've been watching the show, watching her, like, you still love her. And he was like, you know, Kara, please do not tell her I was here, because all it's going to do is upset her. So just don't even tell her I was here. I just wanted to make sure that she was okay, you know. But he was just like, physically, like, you could see it in his face that he was distraught, you know, like if something happens to her, oh my God. But at that time, he was not ready to face her, you know. He you know, it was like, he still was like, you know, like, I still love her, but this whole baby thing, you know, I haven't gotten to the point where I'm able to just accept this situation or whatever. So Kara's doing a self-breast exam after Orlando, you know, he wants to be like on TV too or whatever. And so he ends up going out of the country because he has opportunity to, you know, have his dream job moment. So he's out of the country. She's still in New York working. So she's doing a breast self-exam, and she feels a lump. We find out that her family has a history of breast cancer. Her sister and her mother have both had breast cancer. So she ends up feeling a lump. She goes to the doctor. They do a biopsy. They in the lump, they found out it is breast cancer, but it has not spread. It is just one, you know, lump. So she asked the doctor, what should she do? You know, lumpectomy, whatever. And the doctor says, based on your family history, you know that your mother and your sister both have had breast cancer. I would suggest that you have a double mastectomy. So she decides that she's going to do this. Now, mind you, Mary Jane have just had the baby. And then now Kara has to have this surgery. So she doesn't want to tell Orlando that she's having this surgery. She don't want him to come back. You know, she kind of want to do it all on her own. She's asked Dr. Washer, you know, she just kind of want to be that strong person that is just trying to do everything and don't need nobody. So she tells Mary Jane what she's going to do, and Mary Jane is like, oh my God, like, you know, I need to be there for my friend. And so Mary Jane is her contact person. She had Mary Jane sign, you know, be her executor to her life insurance and everything. Like, Mary Jane, just take care of my kids if something happened to me. So she tells Mary Jane what's going on, what her plan of action is, and she goes to the hospital and has the procedure. So she begged Mary Jane, do not tell Orlando. So when Kara comes out of surgery, the doctor says everything is fine, you know, you can go see her. Mary Jane goes in there, and Kara wakes up and she's like, I just wish Orlando was here. And she started crying, and she was like, he's on his way. She's like, no, he's not, because he don't know. She said, no, he's on his way. He called me from the plane. He's on his way. She was like, you told him? And she was like, yeah, because she knew that she was, you know, that she went. So she broke that confidence. Unlike Kara, who never told Mary Jane that Michael Ealy's character, is his name Jason? What's his name? Justin, that's his name. Or the character on the show. That he showed up to the hospital. Even at this moment, she still don't tell her. So, okay, Orlando comes. He proposes to Kara. She like, you just doing this because you feel bad because I got cancer. He like, no. And she like, but I ain't going to have breasts. First and foremost, you're going to have perfect breasts now because you're going to have breast implants. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So, you know, he's like, no, I don't care what you have. Like, I love you, Kara. And he is such a sweetheart with her. Like, they have had the cutest relationship. She has tried to fight it, you know, and everything. And he's always been super sweet. So he proposes to her. So that's Kara's little perfect world tied up in a bow. She found out she had breast cancer. She didn't have to have chemo or radiation. So she never lost her hair. She caught it early. And, you know, so just perfect, her little perfect situation tied up in the bow, and she got the man. So Mary Jane goes back to work, and mind you, Kara is out because she's healing from her surgery, and it's a crowd around, and she like, what's going on? Everybody's standing around. It's Justin. He's there to temporarily replace Kara as the producer, and nobody has told Mary Jane. So she like, oh my God, what are you doing here? And he's like, I'm the temporary producer. So she's like trying to be, you know, a grown woman about the situation, and she's like, well, we worked together well in the past, so hopefully we can work well together in the future. And so, you know, he was like, you know, how's everything going, and how's the baby? And, you know, she's like, fine, you know, thanks for asking, or whatever. But they, you know, they try to keep it like work, you know. So Morris Chestnut's character shows up, and he's like, you know, who is that or whatever. She's like, oh, that's my friend. Like, he helps out with the baby or whatever. Like, he just done jumped right into father mode. He watching the baby when the nanny ain't available or whatever. Like, it's crazy. So there's like some sort of awards or something like that, and Mary Jane is going, and Morris Chestnut supposed to be her date, but they're at the it's like they're at the studio, but they're all dressed to the nines. Like, the guys are in Texas, Mary Jane got on the dress, and the two guys, Morris Chestnut's character and Michael Ealy's character, Justin, they get into an altercation about Mary Jane. Like, basically, he's like saying, you know, thanks for basically walking away because you opened the door for me to get in. Like, you know, you didn't see what you had, so I was able to come in. And so Michael Ealy felt the type of way. So, you know, they got into a physical altercation. And like, Michael Ealy hit him and Morris Chestnut hit him. So when Mary Jane comes and she sees Morris Chestnut over him, she like, this is my job. Like, what are you doing? Like, you are embarrassing me. Like, come on, for real. So he leaves. Like, he says something like, you know, about her. Like, I see the two of y'all together, rah, rah, rah. So he leaves, mad at Mary Jane. Then Justin also leaves. So at that time, this is when they say that Mary Jane finds out that it was Kara who said bring Justin back. It wasn't the network that decided to bring him back while she was out. It was Kara. So she calls Kara on the phone at the hospital, and she's like, Kara, you're the reason that he's here. Why didn't you tell me? Like, you could have gave me the heads up. And she was like, because he still loved you, and I needed to get y'all together because that man still loved me. She like, what are you talking about? She was like, because even that day when he was at the hospital, she like, excuse me, where? So she like, yeah, girl, he showed up to the hospital and I could just see it in his eyes. Like, he was just so in love with you. He just was so worried about you. And she was like, but you never told me, Karen. She was like, he begged me not to say nothing or whatever. Folks, you see, wasn't reciprocated. I told him, you should have told me. So anyway, so she finds out where Justin lives, and he has this big ranch in Atlanta that he done bought, and he is like in the horse stable. A black man, in the horse stable. Anyway, so she ends up there, and she's like, they told me where you live. And they have a conversation, and he's like, basically like I was a coward or whatever for like leaving, and and he was like, but like I love you and I love all these things about you. So he starts telling her all the stuff he loves about her and everything. So as Mary Jane, the hoe, she sleeps with him. So they have sex, and then she gets a phone call from her her nanny. And the nanny is basically like, my father was in an accident, I gotta leave. So she like, I gotta rush home. But she like, I need a car service. So he like, no, it'll take too long for them to get out here, I'll take you home. So he takes her home, and the baby has colic. So the baby is just screaming, crying. And so the nurse was like, do the shower trick. So she takes the baby in the shower, and it soothes him, and so he gets to see like, oh, okay, like this whole, they look at the baby, and she's like, oh, he's like, oh, he's beautiful, and she's like, thank you. So she's like, can you watch the baby while I go fix his bottle? So he sits in the bathroom with the shower and the steam while is watching the baby. The baby then wakes up a little bit and starts crying. So he picks the baby up and starts singing to the baby. So he starts singing to the baby, and she's like, oh my God, like he's singing. And the baby immediately stops crying. Colic is no longer a factor. So then there's a knock at the door. It's Morris Chestnut. He's there with roses and a ring. He proposes to Mary Jane. And then Michael Ealy is holding the baby, and he comes from around the corner like, so then we see Mary Jane. We flash back because at the beginning of the show, she was at a wedding. We didn't know. It was basically like, who was she going to choose? We knew who she was going to choose. Okay. So she marries Michael Ealy's character, Justin, and it's a perfect little family, and it's a perfect little bow, and everything's perfect. She got what she wanted. She got the baby. She got the man. She got the career. She's the #1 person on TV besides Oprah. Everything was just perfect. Okay, that's how we know it's fictional. Like, come on, Mary Jane was not a perfect little bow wrapped up show where she got everything she wanted. That was not the premise of the show. Okay, it was supposed to be real and real stuff, and life ain't perfect. But the way that the show ended, it was everything got tied up in a perfect little pretty little beautiful bow. Her parents got back together. They didn't sell the family house. The brother bought it. Niece got a shop, and everything was just perfect. She got a man that was above her. Just everything was so perfect. Whatever. That's Mary Jane.